Hi everybody, Dr. White here with a Friday update. So this video is going to briefly introduce the Module 2 assignment, the annotated bibliography. Important to note for this second module, there is no assignment sheet. Just follow the instructions in the schedule and everything is there. So if you don't, think like you're missing anything, you're not. Everything is in the schedule. So Module 2 runs for about 8 days, and it's really the jumping off point for the rest of the semester. The topic that you pick for Module 2, hopefully it should be related to what you worked on with forms of writing. If you want to tweak it a little bit, that's fine, but do try to stay relatively closely focused. But this is the time to make a shift if you want to make a shift, because this is where you're really researching. And after this point, your research opportunities are pretty limited. You want to take the next week and a half or so to gather your sources, think of them as tools you're putting in a toolbox, and you're then going to later deploy them. So do be relatively selective, careful, and realistic here. Something you're interested in, something that's relevant, current, and happening in the field. So there should be multiple articles published on it. You don't want like a really esoteric topic, and something that it has discussion about it, and something manageable. So even if it's a little technical or scientific in nature, that's fine, but make sure that you're comfortable working with these sources. And at the same time, make sure that there's enough there to work with. If you are relying primarily on like 4, 5, 6-page write-ups, this is the time where you have to get something with more substance to it. Those sources that, you want to get sources here that have longer lists of citations, something in the area of, well, I would say at least double digits, and you're looking for something that's probably longer than 6 or 7 pages. Because again, you want to have enough material after this to work with going forward. So annotated bibliography, how does it work? For Monday night, the 22nd, you need to have an inquiry question. So the inquiry question really is something or a couple of questions that will direct your research for the semester. It's okay to make it a little bit broad for now because you will get some chances to narrow it, but have a topic. Some of you, for your forms of writing, particularly your preliminary bibliographies, you had a little bit of a wide net, and that's fine. But this is the time to focus it in a little bit more. So, for instance, you might consider researching a certain type of cancer treatment rather than just researching like a certain type of cancer. That would be an example of how you might narrow a focus here. Or if you're interested, say, in orthopedics, this might be the time to look at a particular technology or a particular type of joint replacement rather than joint replacements broadly. Most of you are pharmacy, so I would say, again, an example might be, instead of looking at like how a certain type of drug might be used to treat a certain type of disease, at this point you might want to look at certain types of treatment programs using that drug rather than like the whole background. So just some examples of how you might narrow your focus. So the inquiry question, what you really want to do here, the key instruction is the last paragraph of the Monday assignment. Write a long paragraph in which you narrow the focus and specify your questions. Do be careful about topics commonly associated with the word debate. So what I want to mention here briefly is that scholarly or professional debate is not really the same as like public debate, right? Topics like abortion or I guess medical marijuana, or is that even a debate anymore? I'll use abortion as an example. It's a contested issue in the public sphere. That means you have passionate supporters, passionate opponents, probably mostly opponents, and there's a, I guess it's a debate. I think it's people yelling mostly against it, but you have a public debate over it. Academic and professional debates are much more muted. Typically, they're not negative in nature, and it's the yes but or yes and model, where you say, yes, that's a good idea, but maybe we should do it this way, or we've treated polio one way for the last 50 years in countries where it still exists. Now we need a different approach because we have people who aren't vaccinating their children. So it's updating older ways of thinking. But you look, if there's multiple sources published, and by that I mean scholarly articles, if there's multiple articles on a topic, that's probably good enough. But you need to make sure it's a big enough topic to work with. If you can find if you can find a few dozen articles at least on the precise topic, you're great. And if you can find, I'd say even like 10, you're probably okay. But you need to make sure you have enough material to work with. So that's the guidelines there. So for Monday, the inquiry question, it's really just a chance for you to kind of write through what you're interested in researching. So throw it out there, follow the prompts in the schedule. For Tuesday night, you need to reply to those inquiry questions and try to kind of push your partners, whoever you respond to either focus more narrowly or at the same time expand, depending on where they are. But the idea is to guide them and to kind of say, oh, I'm interested in this topic too. Here's what I think you should do, or have you considered? So ask questions. Asking questions generates response and discussion, and that's what we want to go for here. Then for Wednesday, you're going to have a chance to revise that inquiry question to, again, narrow your focus here. And then for Friday, you're going to have to actually write I believe it's the rough draft. Yeah, the rough draft of it. You'll notice there's no formal peer review for this project, and that's intentional because it's something that really the review process associated with the inquiry question is more valuable than the actual annotated bib. And an annotated bibliography, by the way, it's just going to end up looking like a references page or a works cited page, depending on if you're working in APA, AMA, or MLA. It's going to look like a regular list of references with the bibliographic information, title, publication date, issue, volume number, author names, page numbers if applicable, date of access if it's an online source. It's going to be just like that, and then underneath the bibliographic information, you're going to have a short paragraph summarizing the source and explaining how it might contribute to a research project on your topic. Now, of course, if you've looked forward in the syllabus, you know that we're not actually doing an in-depth long research paper. Modules 3 and 4 do use this information and these sources to address a scholarly and professional audience, but it's not a long research paper. So for this purpose, for the purposes of the annotated bib, pretend like you are writing one, and consider that you're going to be working with these sources and this topic for a few weeks in a few different ways. So you want to really think about what you could do with it in terms of contributing to a conversation. Where do you see this field going, and where do you see this particular topic developing, and why will it matter? What kinds of questions are researchers not answering and not asking, and what kinds of questions are they focused on? Why are they so focused on these questions? Why might they not be looking at other questions? So these are all things to consider as you're evaluating sources. The big thing with the annotated bib is to write the summaries on your own. Don't cheat and use the abstracts. If you copy and paste abstracts, I can tell and I will report you for plagiarism. You need to read the sources so that you know what's in them, because you're going to need to have a command of that content for future units. It won't be useful to you if you steal abstracts. There's my big talk. Along with that, just make sure you're explaining why the source is useful. After doing the forms of writing analysis, you should have a pretty good idea of how writing looks in your field, and particularly with respect to this question, more or less. So you should have some points of reference there as well to inform you. So that's my brief intro to Module 2. I'll probably be back on Monday or Tuesday with a more focused commentary on the inquiry question, probably Tuesday after I see what y'all are able to come up with for the preliminary, those inquiry questions. So have a great weekend, and you'll hear from me again on Tuesday. Bye-bye.